kind of wave your arms like a bird when he logs on so we can get him qualified. Okay. We will call to order the Police and Fire Retirement Board meeting, and we will begin by a roll call. Sunita?
Present.
Andrew?
Here.
David Kwan?
Here.
Howard?
Present.
Dick?
Yes.
David Woosley?
Here.
Gretchen?
Here.
And I, Franco Votto, am here. We are waiting Eswar to join shortly. Let's see, I do not believe there is any orders of the day. Okay, for the record, Eswar has joined. Eswar, you are present via remote? Eswar?
I'm here.
Okay. We just need to qualify you real quick.
Good morning, Vice Chair Menon. I'd like to qualify you for remote appearance under the traditional Brown Act teleconferencing rules. Is the location where you're currently teleconferencing from the same address that is posted on the agenda?
That's correct.
Is the location from where you're teleconferencing from ADA accessible and open to the public?
Yes.
Have you posted the agenda of the location from where you are teleconferencing from so that it can be seen by the public?
Yes.
If a member of the public wishes to be heard from your location, can they be heard? Vice Chair Menon has been qualified under traditional Brown Act teleconferencing rules and may participate remotely. As a reminder, all votes must be by roll call today.
Okay, thank you. Do you have one item 4G is going to be deferred to the February meeting? And then other than that, we will be going to the consent calendar. I have a motion from Dick.
Second.
I have a second from Gretchen. All the, well, roll call. Hold on, let me get my list. Okay. Eswar?
Aye.
David Kwan?
Aye.
Dick? Andrew?
Yes.
Sunita?
Yes.
David Woosley?
Yes.
Howard Lee?
Yes.
Gretchen?
Yes.
And I, Franco Votto, am an aye. Okay. I think we go to investments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, trustees. Happy New Year. We don't have any investment agenda items this morning, but as always, I wanted to share one comment and then some performance numbers as well. As of Jan 7th, and again, these are unaudited estimates from Makita, the pension fund returned 3.6% and healthcare trust was 3.18%. This is as of Jan 7th. Again, these are estimates and these are unaudited. And I just wanted to make a quick comment as we lay a president to rest today. It's important to understand his legacy, especially with inflation, because that's going to be really, really important this year. It's going to be very consequential for the markets. And President Carter actually, unlike most presidents would want Federal Reserve chairs and board members who are actually prone to cutting rates. And he took the very courageous decision of appointing Paul Volcker, knowing fully well that Volcker is actually going to raise interest rates. And that, of course, doomed his presidency, but helped the country for many decades after that. And so I would like to acknowledge that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
If I could just ask,
Go ahead.
so the performance is on the fiscal year basis, you said?
This is fiscal year today.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other? Okay, moving on. We have nothing for old business or deferred items. We're now to new business, oral update by CEO John Flynn.
Good morning, everyone. Happy and healthy New Year to you and all of your families. ORS update. We have successfully completed the recruitment for our senior accountant. I'm delighted that Nam Cao, a current ORS employee, has accepted the position and is due to start his new role on January 19th, 2025. Nam joined ORS in 2016 as a temporary employee. He has served as our temporary senior account clerk for less than 2 years before officially becoming a City of San Jose employee as an accountant in June of 2019. Nam stepped up to serve as a senior accountant on a higher class assignment. He seamlessly contributed to the audit and ACFR process, helping everything go smoothly despite the challenges we faced. So I just want to congratulate Nam and us for accepting that role. But then that means that we now need to recruit for a now vacant account position that Nam was previously in. ORS is continuing to recruit for the senior office specialist position, and we hope to have that position filled by February 2025. ORS completed its review of the ORS procurement policy and will deliver a revised policy. We delivered a revised policy to the governance committee, and this is based on ORS and finance's collaboration. The changes were fairly minimal to better align the policy with existing city definitions. This policy is on the agenda later today for approval. ORS lease is due to expire March 31st, 2025. ORS is working to finalize the space analysis and the build-out estimates with the building. I anticipate coming to the board in February to request approval to negotiate and execute a new lease agreement. ORS has started to prepare for numerous RFPs. We released 3 RFPs just before the holiday closure: the legal services, the actuarial and audit services, and the governance services. All 3 of these RFPs were posted to Bidingo, which is the city's procurement website. And we also advertised these RFPs at NCPERS and CalPERS, posting in their RFP sections of their websites, as well as for those who do newsletters, they will be included in those newsletters to try to promulgate exposure. Lastly, our accounting team went through all of the California ACFRs for 2022 and 23 and pulled out all legal services that were listed on those ACFRs. For any of those firms that had publicly available emails, we also sent a notification which included 32 emails to legal firms that were currently or previously servicing California-based pension funds. So, you know, we're trying to get the word out about these RFPs to solicit some good competitive process. Retiree 1099-Rs will be mailed by the end of January. Our guaranteed purchasing power for 2024 will be paid to those who qualify in February for both Fed and police and fire. Retirees impacted by 415 limits. As a reminder, the 415 limit for 2025 is $280,000, an increase of $5,000 from the 2024 limit. They will see those adjustments in their March 2025 retirement payment. The January edition of the Retirement Connection newsletter will be mailed later this month. As previously mentioned, ORS is looking to default to a digital distribution of the newsletter for the summer of 2025 edition. Included in this next newsletter and the next newsletter, we expect to have articles explaining this change and instructions on setting up distribution preferences if the members choose to continue to receive a paper copy. And then lastly, the ORS offices will be closed on Monday, January 20th for Martin Luther King Jr. Day and the 29th for Lunar New Year. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for John? No? Okay, moving on. Oral update from the City Council liaison.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. And probably want to thank you for mentioning President Carter. I listened to some of his ceremony this morning coming in. It was very moving, all those memories of him and the impact that he's had on our country. Truly a humanitarian. So we're in a new calendar year and heading into the budget session when we start looking at where we are financially. Although last year we learned that our sales tax revenue is not where we want it to be, and so the city manager put a freeze on hiring. Not all departments, it's not across the board. That doesn't include police and fire. We're still in the process of recruiting, and our numbers are down with police and fire, unfortunately. I know we have a swearing-in ceremony in a couple of weeks with new recruits, which is great, but we're still under the amount that we've actually budgeted, and that's a critical concern. So this is going to be a difficult financial year for the city. I just mentioned that to you to keep you up to date as to what's happening on the city side. We are in or beginning contract negotiations with the police department. I think we're at the end of our 3-year term. Dave probably knows that better than I do, that we're working on that negotiations, and that comes through closed session. We won't have any information about that. Won't have anything to release publicly at all. With the new year, every 2 years, the mayor appoints new council members or moves them around and asks where we'd like to be. This year, I'm really honored that he appointed me as vice mayor, so I'm very excited to take that role. Of course, the city council gets to approve that next week, and hopefully they will all say yes to my appointment as vice mayor. Most of my committees are staying the same. We do have 3 new council members coming in, with the 4th council member coming in. They're here, so they needed to be put in various roles, and we had council members who were veterans of committees who are gone. So one of those council members was Councilmember Davis, who left the Federated Board, and one of the council members coming in is George Casey. This will be my last meeting here. I am moving over to the Federated Board, and George will be the council member who is the liaison to this board beginning next meeting. I actually invited him to come today, but I asked him too late, and he was already booked, but he's looking forward to sitting in as liaison to this board. I've really enjoyed this. Truthfully, a couple of years ago, I was ready to move on from my liaison position, but Drew begged me to stay. We were just post-COVID, and there was kind of a tricky time for the retirement board, and I agreed to continue to stay. It's not the easiest thing to ask a council member to be a liaison to this board, because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of reading, a lot of understanding of what's going on, but I know that George will do really well, and I look forward to moving over to the Federated side. Same issues, same conversations, just a whole different board. So for those of you I've worked with for so many years, I really appreciate you, particularly Andrew, who was the very first person who sat down with me as a new council member coming in and talked to me about the retirement board and what it meant, and I really appreciate that friendship and that conversation that we had. And I know that on the other side, that'll be a whole series of conversations that I'll have with the new board. But this is my last meeting, and you will be seeing George in the next meeting. Truthfully, this timing works. The date of your meeting and moving over to Federated works a lot better with my schedule, because I'm taking a more active role on VTA. I'm a VTA director as well. And this day, we have a morning meeting here, which can be a long meeting. Sometimes it goes to 1. And then VTA is in the evening and sometimes goes till midnight. And there's committee meetings in between for VTA that I will be now assigned to, because I have a chairmanship over there. So it will make my first Thursday of the month not as crazy, but I really look forward to being on the Federated side. The police and fire retirement numbers are slightly better than federated. So I look forward to understanding the federated side, but the issues are very similar. It's all about working with our employee groups and making sure that we have the best benefits, and and on the city side, we're able to pay for the unfunded liability. So with that, I am really, it's bittersweet to say that I'm leaving this board, but I'm not leaving the retirement services. I'll just go to another day, and I hope to see you around and stay in contact.
Any words for Pam?
Anyway, thank you for your service, appreciate it.
Thank you.
No, I also wanted to appreciate it. It's been 6 years.
Yeah.
So, continuity and having someone in here, because as you know, it's the onboarding process takes a while.
Yeah.
And try to wrap your hands around. So, I appreciate your time, and you'll continue your service on the federated side. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
And congratulations on your new role, and good luck and success with it. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I want to say the same thing. I'm really excited for you to be vice mayor, and we'll miss you on this board, but I'm glad you're continuing to be involved in the retirement system.
Thank you.
Yeah, just thank you again for your support.
Thanks.
Yeah, just to
If I
echo.
could say something?
Go ahead, please, Eswar.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. We haven't worked extensively. I know we had some discussions on incentive comp. Maybe we had some differences of opinion, but I think I've always enjoyed you attending the meeting. You have a pretty sunny personality. You smile, laugh a lot, which is great. And good luck with being the vice mayor and your role at Federated. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm not sure I'd ever be described as a sunny personality, but I love hearing that. Thank you. I have to say, I didn't think I would get emotional with announcement, but I am slightly emotional. So if I become more emotional, I apologize. It's just, I've been here a long time.
No, and I echo, thank you, and congratulations on vice chair.
Thank you.
Or, excuse me,
Mayor.
vice mayor.
Yep, thank you.
Anything else?
I'll just say thank you for welcoming me here to San Jose and to the boards. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to meeting with you on the federated side.
Great, and John, thank you very much, and maybe we can sit down and have lunch with George, Casey, and
Sounds great.
and Franco, and whoever your vice chair, Aswar, or whatever happens after that vote today.
That sounds great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 4C, discussion and action on the election of vice chair of the board. I understand I think there was a couple of us that were not here for the December meeting. We have 2 nominations. We have David Kwan and Sunita. I will open it up for a motion and second, and then discussion. So do I have, I'm sorry.
Can I ask if, just given that we've been in, a holiday period, many of you us were out, does it make sense to postpone this by a month?
Well, I am okay with deferring it, just understanding that you are the interim vice chair.
That's correct. I understand that it's a lot of responsibility, like vice presidents of the United States, but yes, I'm happy to continue for a month if it makes the decision a bit easier, I guess, without, so the board is more in sync.
I am okay with that if no one has any objections.
I would agree with that, and I would ask, over the month that I know the policy, looking at the policy, it seems not clear cut, about the options at this point, and hopefully we get some more clarity on what all the different options are for going into the next meeting.
I have the policy here. Would you like me to read the sections?
Yeah.
Just for everybody's?
Yeah, and just for, we've been kind of digging down, and I know John's going to read the policy, but we've looked in, obviously being on the governance committee, you will hear from us later that this is going to be one of the items that we are going to look at. We think this policy is somewhat antiquated, you know, pulling rabbits out of hats isn't exactly the best way to handle this. However, considering that we are not to a point where we're getting 6 on one side or the other, we are postponing the review of this particular section until we can come up with 6 votes on one side or the other, because other words, it seems a little bit meddling, if that makes sense. And then I'll let John read it.
Okay, so the Police and Fire Department Retirement Plan Policy on Election of Board Officers. I'm going to read Section 2 and Section 3, which describes the election process. At the December regular meeting of the board will elect one of the board chair nominees and one of the board vice chair nominees to fill the respective roles by open vote. An affirmative vote of 6 board members is required to select the board chair and the board vice chair. In the event there are more than 2 nominees and none receive 6 votes, then a runoff will be held between the 2 nominees with the highest number of votes. If an election for either position fails to result in a nominee receiving 6 votes, and after a good faith effort to achieve such votes during the regular board meeting, then a board member will be selected by random draw to serve in the vacant position until such time as the required votes are obtained through a follow-up election or elections. A follow-up election shall be scheduled for the next regular board meeting and will be repeated at said meeting or at subsequent meetings until a candidate is elected.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on that?
I would propose a motion to delay until next February meeting on this vice chair action.
I don't know that we need to have a motion on it. I think,
Okay,
We have consensus.
yeah, I think via the chair, I can defer it to
okay,
the February meeting.
all right.
And I'm good with that, as long as everybody else is. Okay. Okay, going to 4D. Discussion and action of standing committee assignments. So, because of, obviously, we had a search for a new CEO, we had a vacancy on our 9th seat for about a year. Our committee assignments have not moved very much, probably in the last 2 years. I'm not making a ton of moves, but I did consult with John, and we did look at the charter related to the board, and looked at the kind of the recommendations for committee assignments. And I don't know if John has it handy, but not to quote it, but something brief to it is that it says to look at the skills of your board members and place them in places that are most appropriate and work best for the plan. So we kind of went through it and we made some moves. We did discover things like the chair is not supposed to chair any committees, which I am currently chairing governance. So that is not allowed. So it was good for us to get our eyes on it and read it. Do you want to add anything to that, John, or?
No, just that we reviewed the charters. The chair and the vice chair are not supposed to chair committees. I know our vice chair isn't set yet, but that doesn't preclude us from making changes later on if needed.
Okay. So I will read off kind of what I have put together based on that. So, and again, we always have, you know, the wrench in the engine. Eswar is currently on the investment committee and listed as chair, which as interim chair, I don't know if that qualifies, but that is something that could be discussed. I have Andrew as vice chair, Howard Lee, and moving David Kwan to the investment committee. Audit risk, I'd like to move Sunita to chair. Howard Lee, actually, we have Sunita on this twice, and I think this is supposed to be 3, right?
Oh, apologize.
And then David Woosley.
Yes, 3.
And then I believe, if needed, the committees themselves can recommend a vice chair.
Yes, by charter, all the committees, except for the investment committee, elect their own vice chair at their first committee meetings.
And again, I do believe Sunita was the chair of this committee before. As we saw over 2024 with our audits, both the internal and the external, I think she was paramount in helping us sort through it with her auditor experience. So that's why I placed her as chair. Governance, I have Richard Santos as chair. I will stay on for governance and adding Gretchen. Disability, I think it's makes sense for Dick and then Dave Woosley. And then I'm leaving the Joint Personnel Committee the same, Eswar, myself, and Andrew. And I think on that one, I have to be,
Yes, both you and the chair of the investment committee have to
Yes.
be members of this committee.
I'm sorry, I've never been an auditor, so I don't know.
I thought you were an auditor.
Absolutely
my
not,
understanding.
no. I'm an investment professional.
Okay,
And so,
That's fine.
and then I did risk management of overseeing an investment and asset liability trillion-dollar balance sheet of Wells Fargo, so,
okay.
just to clarify.
I don't have everybody's resume.
No, no, I understand, just wanted to clarify these.
Franco, could you summarize because that's what it was, that's what it is today. Could you summarize the new changes? Because maybe I missed some
The
of it.
changes would be, I know David Kwan has expressed interest in getting more involved, so he's on the investment committee. We would have to figure out the chair of the investment committee, with Eswar being the vice chair. He can't chair it. Audit,
Who was on the investment committee?
I think the only difference is Sunita.
Oh, so Sunita is switching with David Kwan? Is
Yeah.
that
And then David Woosley will go to audit with you and Sunita. Gretchen goes to governance. Woosley goes to disability. And joint personnel stays the same.
And Sunita becomes chair of the audit committee?
Audit
So I'll
committee, yes.
switch with her.
Mr. Chair, will David Kwan off the governance committee?
Yes. David Kwan would be off the governance. We have two new board members. I don't want to overwhelm them by sticking them on a bunch of committees, so let them get their feet wet and then
Who'd you have for chair for governance?
Dick. It's also a balance of trying not to have all public members or all plan members in one. So it was a longer discussion than I thought we would have to have. Did it multiple times, trying to figure it out.
So, can I react? 'Cause,
Yes, please.
So I think the evolution of my 4 years on the board is that the first 2 years I was on the governance committee as a member, and then Drew, chair at that time, put me on the risk committee, and he said,
Risk committee?
the audit and risk committee.
Uh-huh.
And he said that he understood that my investment experience was very valuable, but we obviously have a constraint and there are only 4 members. And he was the longest serving member, so he was going to roll off once the VC strategy was in place
Mm-hmm.
and put me on. And so I'm actually the newest member of the IC.
Okay.
And then the understanding was that at some point I would roll off the audit risk committee as new members come in. And I switched out from the chair to Howard because I took on the vice chair role.
Mhm.
And so I think that in my mind, it seemed, at least from what he said, that it would be sort of the newest member would join the audit risk committee. So, and I would stay on IC. That was sort of
Okay.
Trish, yeah.
Well, let me do this. We can parson these out for discussions, but according to the charter, if we don't come to agreement on any of these and they get deferred, the committees cannot meet. So let me do this first. Does anyone have a problem? My biggest concern with the backlog is disability. We have a backlog, those need to get done. I don't want that getting pushed off. So let me parson out disability. Does anyone have a problem with the set here on disability? And I'll entertain a motion for that one separately.
So moved.
I have a motion from Dick. Do I have a second?
Wait, so who's on the vacant seat? Sorry.
For disability,
Yeah.
it's going to be David
Oh,
Woosley
okay.
in place
Sorry,
of
I
David
s-
Wilson.
Got it. Makes sense.
The-
And there's a few changes in the alternates. Do you
Yeah.
want me
The
to read through
alternates.
those?
Yeah.
So, I just want to make sure. Okay, so Richard Santos, Chair, Dave Woosley as number 2. Howard Lee is first alternate, non-participant. Frank Votto as first alternate participant. Howard Lee as second alternate, non-participant.
And I think we had a discussion on, the second alternate is, I mean, we rarely get to the first alternate, typically because of the length of the files and the amount that you go through, the meeting gets moved before you start getting into a second alternate, let alone a first alternate. So if someone wants to be a second alternate, I have no problem with them adding it, but I don't know that since I've been here, we've ever got to a second alternate.
And just for the last, Andrew Gardner is the second alternate for participant.
Okay. Gretchen?
With the disability committee, with the alternates, it's distinguished between non-participant and participant. Do we have to be thinking with the primary members that there's a participant and non-participant?
There was at a time, but I think this board took a look, it's very unique for disabilities. And we also have the issue of they do both police and fire. So having a representative of police and fire at least represents both sides
Yep.
of the people going through the disability process.
In which case, do we need to, with the participants, be distinguishing between non-participant, or with the alternates, be distinguishing between non-participant and participant?
I'm not sure if I understand your question, but I'll tell you what this is. This is like when you write new language over old language that hasn't changed.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote on disability.
Before we do the roll call, who was the
Go ahead.
second for the Disability Committee? Thank you.
Eswar,
Aye.
David Kwan,
Aye.
Dick, Andrew,
Aye.
Sunita,
Aye.
David Woosley,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Gretchen,
Yes.
and I, Franco, am a yay. Okay, I wanted to get that out of the way. So Sunita, if what I'm hearing you say is that you would like to stay on the investment committee, and I apologize, I don't know everyone's background other than what they tell me. That was my understanding.
No worries.
I think the longest standing member on that has been Eswar, if I'm correct. I don't know how long Eswar's been there. I do, go ahead, Eswar.
I don't know the answer to that, but yeah.
I've left Andrew on it specifically because he's our one safety member who has the experience. I think in time, David Woosley may be able to take that role as a safety member. He is currently the chair for Deferred Compensation Advisory Committee, but going back to, I don't think he needs a fire hose put at him, in his first year. So I am open to discussion on the investment committee if you would like to remain on to it.
Appreciate that. Yes, I think,
But I would like to see David Kwan get an opportunity to get involved.
yeah, and I think that was the purpose of getting David on the sub ad hoc committee. Because,
Yes.
there is a constraint. We are more investment people than there are positions. But, obviously I'm in this board to serve the plan. So I'm open to any suggestions. I would only say my preference would be that I stay on the investment committee and David Kwan joins the audit risk committee. That would be my preference, but I'm open to whatever people sort of want to do. So I'll also defer to Ishwar as chair if he wants to weigh in, so.
Ishwar?
I guess normally I would say the chair of the board, can make these decisions, but I hear what you're saying, I hear what Sunita is saying. I would say that as the chair of the IC, we're dealing with some issues which have not been fully resolved. And if I can stay through this year, then I'll step down after that. That would be my preference, just to bring to termination some of the things that I've been working on, both with the investment staff and with this board.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. Anybody else?
So, from the investment point of view, my background actually, I think, is fairly unique. I've been an LP, I've been a GP, which is an investor, and I also come from more private equity. So from a diversification perspective, I think I'm probably more adept at maybe adding a different perspective and diversification. So from the point of view of the benefit for the plan, I think it's good to have diversification, but whatever is best for the plan is what I will do.
Okay. And again, not knowing everybody's resume, David, do you have a specific expertise in your?
Well, my expertise is 27 years experience in the investment management field, working with large pension clients, such as cities, states, countries, sovereign wealth funds. So yeah, my preference was eventually to get on the investment committee. As of right now, I guess my only potential assignment is the investment committee, because I've just been taken off of the governance committee. So I have lots of capacity. In terms of audit risk, I'm open to that too, but certainly that's not as much of my background as on the investment side.
No.
So again, I'm open. Right
Oh.
now, I'm open because I have 0 committee assignments.
Well, I especially with you having background with pension funds, cities and counties, I think it's important because that's what we are. So I would like to see you move up. You've been expressing it for more than a year to get on the investment committee. So I don't want to take anything away from anyone, but I also want to make sure that we're putting people in places that are slightly different than they've had for the last couple of years. As we start to move them around, I think next year you'll see a lot more movement as our new board members get their feet kind of planted. Eswar would like to stay on. Howard has a good argument that he's kind of doing something a little different. And David really wants to be on. So, Sunita, I understand your position, and it doesn't mean that you don't get back on the investment committee. Maybe when Eswar leaves in a year, that's back for you.
Can you help me understand why, I was told that I should be on the auditors committee and then wait on the investment committee, and
I'm
the
sorry, what?
When Drew assigned these as chair, he said, because we have this issue where we have, typically the public members have an investment background, so we have sort of some aging, and I'm the newest member of the IC. I don't see what the logic would be not to have David Kwon because he and I have a similar background in fixed income, and what the logic would be not to have me step down from the auditors committee, as I've been there for a while, have him on there, and then next year we can swap. That's sort of what I was trying to recommend. I'm just wondering what your thought process was around that. Also seems like if, I think some feedback I've received about dissenting, I would like to sort of take that feedback and work with everybody on IC to get us where we would like to be. It wasn't me dissenting, it was me proposing something that the chair asked me to work on. So I just want to make sure that that's sort of out there.
Well, unfortunately, we can't have more than 4. So this has to be a vote of the board.
Agreed, understood.
I think David has been waiting patiently to get involved with the investment committee. I know Eswar's been there a long time. He's expressed, everybody kind of has a different perspective. It's funny because I don't see anyone fighting to get on governance, but people do like the investment committee. It's what I'll call the sexy committee, right? It's where especially the plan, or the non-plan members have their expertise. Eshwar would be likely to move off because he's been there for some time, but he makes a good argument. So I am leaving this up to discussion of the board, but ultimately this is a decision of the board based on my recommendation.
Mr. Chair, it's obvious to me that you sat down and gave it a lot of time to thought. I know that-
Dick, can you just please make sure you're talking in your mic?
It's obvious that you gave us some time and thought prior to making that decision. So my motion is to support your recommendation. I like to see everybody getting enough training, and there's enough for everybody, so that's my motion.
Okay, well, we can have further discussion, but he's got a motion, so I'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
I have a second from Dave Woosley. We can continue our discussion. I'll take input from anyone else. Andrew, you're on the investment committee.
No, I think everybody has a valid point. I think Cindy has made some good contributions. We are in the middle of a project with that her and Eshwar are heading up. David or Howard definitely has a unique expertise that no one else on this board has, and the committee has. And then, you know, hearing what David just said about his background, there's no easy answer at all to this. You know, when I came on the board, I was always told that, you know, we'll be rotating on a regular basis. We got away from that for a while. And so it is, as Franco said, it is up to us on, you know, if we want to approve this or not. It's not a chair's decision, it's the board's decision. And unless there is someone that's willing to volunteer to come off the board or the committee, then, you know, we're just going to have a hard vote, unfortunately.
Can I also add something? I mean, I think there's some discussion about whatever the special project, I guess, assuming that's the guidelines that we're trying to finish. Maybe we could wait for that to be completed before we make the switch. That's a potential suggestion.
But I think actually the special project now is with you. I'm not involved in it. It's been handed off.
Yeah, you're correct. Thank
Yeah.
you for correcting me.
Suggestion only.
Yeah.
What's the timeline on that? I mean, do you know?
No, we haven't had any discussion yet.
Okay.
Howard, how long have you been on the investment committee?
I can't remember exactly when I joined. I was just thinking about that when Sunita mentioned it. It was probably, I want to say 21, probably 2021.
And Sunita, when did you come on?
I don't remember. When did Drew step down? The years are blurring. I'm going to say I've been on the investment committee a year and a half, but don't hold me to that. But it's when Drew stepped down, I took his spot.
So it was the end of last year.
Was
So
I-
that's
no,
been
but not when
2
he stepped
years.
down as
Sorry, 2 years, two Novembers ago.
Step down from the committee or step down from the board?
stepped down from the committee. So I think
Okay.
that was about a year before he stepped down from the board.
So.
I
I'm
don't
in-
remember, to
what,
be
I'm
honest.
in my second year as chair, right? So he would have been a year prior to that, so 22. So you guys are similar in time on, I'll say, maybe within 6 months?
On the board, we are similar.
No,
but
on,
Not IC.
on the IC?
I mean, I like David Kwan's suggestion that once.
No, well, and the
yeah.
reason, so here's my thought process, and Woosley will understand this. I'm a big fan of succession planning. And succession planning is successful when you have more senior people to bring in newer people. It doesn't work as well when you have more junior people bringing in new people. So I do not have a problem with what David Kwan suggested, but I would also see a value in having David Kwan on it, and I'm not saying anything other than where my perspective is, while Eshwar, who's the most senior person on there, can kind of give the guidance. I mean, ultimately, as everybody knows, Dave Wilson retired. Dave Wilson could have took this retiree spot. But Dave Wilson didn't have the experience on this board that I did, so we had a conversation with Dave Woosley coming on, that it would be beneficial for me to stay because I've been on the board longer to help get him up to speed, and your next retiree may very well be David Wilson back again, right? That's our idea of succession planning. So I am not against what he's proposing. I will ask John and our legal counsel if during mid-year it's okay to make those type of moves. If that is the consensus of this board, then I'm okay with it. But I would like to see David Kwan get some experience on the IC.
My reading of the charter says that that's allowed. It would have to be by a vote of the full board, where these are votes based on your recommendation. So your recommendations, the board votes, they get put in place for a year. If there was to be an interim change, that would have to be at the direction of the full board.
Okay. Eshwar.
And I think not to complicate things, but like I said, my preference is that I stay on for another year. I'll step down from the IC at that point. Either if Sunita steps off, she comes back on when I step down, or if she stays on, then David comes on at that stage. Now, if it's a choice between Sunita and David, and again, not to complicate things, the one who joins the IC steps away from the nomination for the vice chair. So one person is the vice chair, the other is on the IC. Just a suggestion.
Oh, that definitely
definitely
complicates it, doesn't it? Again, we're still up for discussion.
So after everything I'm hearing and what David just said, it sounds like, I mean, I don't want to complicate it and throw the vice chair stuff in with this, because it's just too much. My recommendation would be, since David made the suggestion of slowly making the transition based off of him continuing working that project, I say at the conclusion of the project, if that's, before the year or at the end of the year, then we make all that transition. Because otherwise, unless someone is willing to step down.
If I could chime in, it's a little bit hard to get a grasp on that when there's no idea on how long the project will take. I think he said he hasn't really started having conversations about the project, right? And I'm not familiar with the project, but if we don't know when the project has an anticipated endpoint, it's hard to support something where it could be all year, it could be a month. And knowing that would be helpful.
Just from a process perspective, so there was a motion on the table to accept the nominations that Franco had originally.
Yep.
You'd have to make a competing motion
Yep.
to move that.
I'll call for the question.
Or,
I say we vote on Dick's. And
okay, well,
if it doesn't pass, then
let's do that. Let's vote on Dick's. And if it doesn't pass, then we can continue other discussions. But I do believe that we have to keep these together, because to David Kwan's point, if he's not on the investment committee, he's not on anything. So that they're kind of tied together, and this is what me and John experienced when we met. You move one person, and then all of a sudden, look, that's all safety, and then you move another person, and that's all public. So every time you move something, everything kind of jiggles around. So
Can I propose a counter motion?
yes.
Is that allowed by the process?
Yes.
I'd propose a motion that David Kwan's, that I stay on the IC for this year, or we revisit this. We can revisit this when the project, which is supposed to finish by the middle of this year, I think. And David Kwan can step into my shoes in the audit risk committee. So he is on a substantive committee, similar to the path that most of us have followed, Howard, myself. We've been on audit risk, and then we've got put on to IC. That would be my proposal. So anyway, let me sort of summarize that. So my proposal is I stay on the IC, and we have the option to revisit this after the project is over. And David Kwan can step into the audit risk committee in my place.
Okay. So we have a counter motion. Do we have a second to the counter motion?
Just to clarify, David Kwong would come on to the audit committee?
Yeah, so I'm saying I stay on the IC.
So
And
I'm
he- I
assuming
think-
Sunita would move from the audit committee, and David Kwan would take your place.
Correct, and that's sort of the path that most of us public members have followed. So that would be my motion. I think, Howard, you followed that path, I followed that path. And so I feel like there's nothing wrong with that, and it is a substantive committee, and David gets involved. He's been involved in the ad hoc committee, and so that would be my motion. I mean, just to
And I'll also add that I will step down from the IC at the end of the year, so. And David can take, David or Sunita, depending on which motion, can take my position, so.
So the proposal is mid-year, do a review, or is it?
Actually, no, I'll just clean this up, that I stay on IC, David steps into Audit Risk Committee in my place, and he continues to be in the ad hoc committee for the investment project. We can always revisit, the board can always revisit.
Always.
But David,
Question, that ad hoc committee is that, the project that we're working on, that one and only project, correct? Which I'm expecting that will be completed by, at the latest, and mid-year, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we should have something in place before we do next asset allocation.
I got a process question. Franco, John, Christopher. Since there's two motions on the floor here,
Hold on.
one hasn't been approved yet, second yet.
And also Franco needs to approve the changes in the committee assignments are at the recommendation of the board chair, so the board chair would also need to agree that that's
So-
okay, and then the board can vote. But I would think it would need to be seconded first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
so
so- from a
maybe
process
I will say that it's not a motion, it would be a recommendation for the chair to consider, given, the process has worked in the past, and given all the sort of changes involved, so.
And I just wanted to read from the board operations policy specifically. I think what you were saying, the board shall appoint the members of each standing committee on the recommendation of the board chair. So it's a recommendation of the board chair that's going to be put up to
So
vote.
I call for the question, the motion.
well, so now this is where I'm looking at it, because we do have a motion and second on the other one, and we have the motioner calling for the question.
So my understanding is that trustees cannot put up a motion for committee assignments that's contrary to the board chair's recommendation. So we can have the discussion and the board chair can change his recommendation based on that discussion, but ultimately the vote is based on the board chair's recommendation and the motion we made off of that.
Thank you.
I say, let's move forward. We got a motion, we got a second. Let's
Okay, so,
vote on it. If it
yes,
doesn't pass,
I
then we
agree,
can
Andrew.
move.
We will vote on this. If it doesn't pass, then I will have to make different recommendations.
Let me get this straight, is there two motions?
No, we are
Just one.
voting on your
The one
initial
I made.
motion.
Thank you.
And it's because it's consistent with your recommendation, is that right?
Yes.
Got it.
Eswar,
Yeah, so just, let me just clarify, so, for governance reasons, I think it's best that we stick to, what our legal counsel said, that the board chair, makes recommendations. So I will support the motion, and as I said, I will step down at the end of the year. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what was
Ah, it's
Support your
Yes.
recommendation.
it? Okay, all right, so I'm assuming that's a yes.
Yes.
David Kwan,
I'm gonna abstain on this vote. I feel like I'm the ping pong ball here, so
okay,
I'm
that's
abstaining.
fair. Dick,
Yes,
Andrew,
Aye.
Sunita?
It's a tough one. I want to support you entirely, Franco, with your recommendation, but it is a bit of a struggle, because I feel that
understand
I'm, somehow my dissenting voice is working against my interest and my desire to be on the investment committee, consistent with how this committee has operated in the past. So I'm a little torn apart. I don't want to vote no, because I think that just seems to hurt me. It seems like I have a choice between a yes and an abstain. At least that's sort of what my rational brain is telling me. And I guess I'm going to go with abstain.
Okay. David Woosley,
Yes.
Howard Lee,
No.
Gretchen,
Yes.
and then I am a yes. I don't have a tally, so.
One, two, three, six pros, 1 against, 2 abstains.
So here's what I would say, Sunita. I understand what you're saying. I would like David Kwan to get on the board with Eshwar there. Whether Eshwar agrees to step down in mid-year when this project is done, or at the end of the year, I do believe you deserve to be back on that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
I honestly mean that. And I know Dave had some comments about the vice chair last year. It is not your dissenting voice. It is not that at all. I actually have been known for a dissenting voice most of my career. So don't take it as that. It's trying to balance this with everybody getting a little bit of experience. That's why I asked the question about the difference in time between you two. I would like him to be there a little bit with Eshwar to get his feet planted. And then when Eshwar steps down, which is the likely person to leave because he's been there the longest, you would come back on.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other, I mean,
We have still a few committees.
I guess we've now separated them all out, right? So we've done investment and we've done disability. Is there any other concerns with audit, governance, or JPC?
I don't see why Howard shouldn't continue as chair. I was wondering what the logic was. Did you say that? I thought I heard you saying it.
Howard is chair for.
For audit?
I think he mentioned you were gonna.
Yeah, but I
That
think,
was under an understanding that that was some of your expertise, but I am completely flexible on that.
yeah, I don't think we should change anything. Howard is, if he's
I-
okay with it.
I am okay with either direction. But honestly, you've had much more experience as the chair during that very tumultuous year. But I'm happy to serve as chair. I mean, if
That's,
I think you would do a better job.
No, I think
I'm
we should just-
amendable to that. so-
I'm okay either ways, but I mean, you've been chair for the last year. There's no reason to change unless you don't have the capacity.
No, I'm fine keeping, I have the capacity, so I'm fine keeping it.
That's not a issue for me.
Okay.
So I'm okay with that. Any other concerns on any of the other committees?
So, can you refresh, who's on the audit risk committee?
Would you like me to read them?
Yes, please.
So with the just proposed change, Audit and Risk Committee would be Howard Lee as chair, Sunita Ganapati, and Dave Woosley. Governance Committee, Richard Santos as chair, Franco Votto and Gretchen Flicker. And JPC would be Eshwar Menon as chair, Franco Votto, and Andrew Gardner.
So, question on the JPC, based on our reading of the charter. With Eshwar currently being the interim vice chair, can he chair that committee?
My conversations with Maytech was that as an interim vice chair, that would not preclude any assignments, but if he were to be appointed as vice chair, which he's not a nominee, but that would cause an issue.
Okay.
And also for the JPC, since it's a joint committee from Federated and this board, the chair and vice chair is selected by the JPC between the two. So our next meeting, that could be something that's on the agenda where
Yeah, I saw
we
something.
normally rotate every year. We switch between Federated and Police and Fire, who's chair. We haven't done that in a while, so that could be a rotation that happens in the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on the rest of committee assignments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the rest of the committee assignments.
So moved.
I had a motion from Dick,
Second by Gardner.
second by Gardner. All right, going back to roll call. Eswar,
Aye.
David, Quan,
Aye.
Dick,
Yep.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sunita,
Aye.
David
Yes.
Woosley, Howard Lee,
Yes.
Gretchen,
Aye.
and I, Franco, am an yes. Okay. Moving on to 4E. Discussion and action on adoption of updated city policy manual number 4.1.4, employee appreciation and recognition with the revised date of December 4th, 2024 for ORS operations approved by city on December 4th, 2024.
Is it okay if I give an
Please do,
update?
because I'm not sure what that is.
Right, so that was a mouthful as compared to the amount of change that was in the policy. So part of our policy work that was done in the previous year was to accept all of, many of the city policies. As the city updates their policies, we will bring them back to the board were they not one of the policies that the board chose to amend. So this is a policy that we chose to accept directly from the city. The city has updated the maximum city funds that can be used for employee appreciation events from $35 to $40. That's the substantive change of the policy. So we're putting in front of you as a recommendation to accept.
Did I hear that right? $35 to 40?
Correct.
That's a tough one, guys. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved to get on with it.
Motion, Dick.
Second.
Second, Gretchen. I was gonna spend more time than the dollars.
Inflation.
Eswar,
Aye.
David Quan,
Aye.
Dick,
Yep.
Andrew,
Aye.
Sunita,
Aye.
David Woosley,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Gretchen,
Aye.
and I am an I.
We can't even eat at Burger King.
True, very true.
Thank you for the commentary, Dick. Okay. I need thicker glasses. Discussion and action to authorize the CEO to negotiate and execute the Second Amendment to the agreement ending on June 30, 2025 for legal services between the Board of Administration for the Police and Fire Department Retirement Plan and Reed Smith to increase the not to exceed by $180,000 from 1.6 million to 1.78 million for the contract period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2024.
So a brief update, as part of the budgeting process that ORS went through for the fiscal year 25 budget, the budget amount that's currently in the budget is covers this increase for Reed Smith. This is to bring in the contract not to exceed amount in alignment with what we expected as part of the budgetary process that happened last year.
Since it's more than $5, I support it.
And just to keep in mind that that's over the entire length of the contract.
That's correct. We're not changing the duration of the contract. This is just to increase the not to exceed to align to the budget that has been previously approved. It's actually under budget, but.
I have a motion from Santos,
Second by Gardner.
second by Gardner. Any further discussion?
I do have a comment. I just want to make a comment to John and staff and who's preparing these. This memo, along with the RFP memo from a couple months ago, the historical information that's been provided has been unbelievable, and I think it's great for, especially new people coming on and people that have been on the board just to remember, what we've done in the past and where we got to. So I just want to commend staff on these memos.
Thank you. That credit goes to the accounting division. It has helped me immensely to have the background as I work with the staff to understand how we got to the point where we are. So thank you for seeing that effort, because it does take an effort to go back
It's
and
very time-consuming.
parse through the history of some of these items. So thank you.
I just had one question on page 2. it, and maybe I got the terminology wrong. It said projected 7 months was 195,000, or almost 196,000. But then also down below it says projected expenditures rest of term is 267. Is term and 7 months the same?
I'd have to check with our division manager, but I believe that Benji, is that you online?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
That additional amount below includes the additional 10,000 contingency for 7 months. So the projected expenses for 7 months in the second table is for what we're expecting based on what we've spent for the first 5 months. But then we're adding an additional contingency amount of 10,000 for the additional 7 months, so that's an additional 70,000, which we rounded it up so that the numbers are whole.
Okay, all right, got it. All right, thank you.
Good question, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, Eswar. Eswar.
Aye.
David Kwan.
Aye.
Dick Santos.
Yes.
Andrew Gardenier.
Aye.
Sunita.
Aye.
David.
Yes.
Woosley.
Yes.
Howard Lee.
Yes.
Gretchen.
Yes.
And I, Franco, am an aye. Okay, moving on to 5 retirements. 5.1 service retirements. Brian DeMar, Fire Engineer, Fire Department, effective January 16th, 2025, with 26.10 years of service. Maximilian Duenas, Fire Captain, Fire Department, effective January 18th, 2025, with 31.01 years of service. Brandon L. Hagerman, Fire Engineer, Fire Department, effective January 19th, 2025, with 25.45 years of service, with reciprocity. John H. Hogue, Police Officer, Police Department, effective January 17th, 2025, with 26.24 years of service. Adam R. Hudson, Police Sergeant, Police Department, effective January 18, 2025, with 25.90 years of service with reciprocity. Stephen D. Longorio, Deputy Chief of Police, Police Department, effective January 31st, 2025, with 28.87 years of service. Cesar A. Martinez, Battalion Chief, Fire Department, effective January 18th, 2025, 28.49 years of service. William M. Murphy, Police Lieutenant, Police Department, effective January 18, 2025, with 28.34 years of service. Heather Randall, Deputy Chief of Police, Police Department, effective January 18, 2025, 25.82 years of service. Mario Racinos, Police Officer, Police Department, effective January 18, 2025, 25.75 years of service. Neil E. Reynolds, Firefighter, Fire Department, effective January 16, 2025, with 20.04 years of service. Carrie K. Shigemasa, Police Officer, Police Department, effective January 31st, 2025, with 30.46 years of service. Benjamin A. Tolentino, Firefighter, Fire Department, effective January 18, 2025, 23.53 years of service. And I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion from Dick, second.
I'll second.
Second from Eswar. And we'll call for the vote. Eswar.
Aye.
David Kwan.
Aye.
Dick?
Yes.
Andrew?
Aye.
Sunita?
Aye.
David Woosley?
Yes.
Howard Lee?
Yes.
Gretchen?
Aye.
And I, Frank Lovato, am an aye. Would anyone like to say any words?
Real quick, address to all of them, especially health.
Echo that. Congratulations on your career, and hope you guys have a great retirement and stay healthy.
Okay. Moving on to item 6, death and survivorship notification. Notification of the death of Douglas Q. Bergholt, police sergeant, retired January 9th, 1999, died November 18th, 2024, no survivorship benefits. Notification of the death of Keith J. Cottrell, police sergeant, retired November 7th, 2015, died October 31st, 2024, survivorship benefits to Leslie Cottrell, spouse. Notification of the death of Jack Half, police officer, retired February 4th, 1993, died November 17th, 2024, no survivorship benefits. Notification of the death of Rick M. Sane, police officer, retired September 4th, 1981, died November 24th, 2024, survivorship benefits to Susan Sane, spouse. And I'll have a moment of silence. Okay. Any words?
Wait for Mr. Woosley.
What's that?
Words?
Wait for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no words at this time, thanks.
I would, Mr. Chair, I was privileged to work with a few of them, especially Jack Half. The early years in Alviso, he was very supportive and helped our community and the best of their families, and thank you all.
I did not work with Douglas. I did, however, sit on the board with Keith Cottrell. He's a good man, and he died a little too young. So, but condolences to his family. All right, moving on to 7, committee minutes, reports, and recommendations. And we'll begin with the investment committee. Ezra?
No meetings. This is our last board meeting. We have a meeting coming up this month.
Audit risk, Howard.
No meetings since the last board meeting. We do have another committee meeting next month in February.
Okay, governance, I guess that is me. I think the first thing is we have to receive and file the minutes. And then we do have, I think, a couple of items.
Correct.
Let's see here. Discussion and action to recommend to the board the approval of ORS policy regarding the procurement and contracting of goods and services that incorporates city finance department's feedback.
Motion to approve. I'm really happy that it's finally seen.
Yes, I had some great partnership with the Department of Finance. The Department of Finance they have a new director. I don't have her name off the top of my head, but I worked very closely with the interim director of finance, Drew Corbett, and his team, and the collaboration was very good, so I was happy we were able to move it through quickly.
It's been a long journey, so it's like, I feel like starting with the audit committee, so I
Yes.
want to mark the moment.
I will second that, Mr. Chair, due
So
to all the information that Maytag gave us on this.
Yes. We have a motion from Sunita. We have a second from Dick. Any further? Eswar?
Aye.
David Kwan?
Aye.
Dick?
Yes.
Andrew?
Aye.
Sunita?
Aye.
David?
Yes.
Woosley? Howard Lee?
Yes.
Gretchen?
Aye.
And I, Franco, am a aye. All right, D, discussion and action to adopt the 2025 work plan for reviewing board charters and policies. And I hope everybody's got a chance to look at it. Obviously, the last year, maybe year and a half, has been adventurous for us. We have found that there's been a lot of things that have kind of fell behind the file cabinet and we haven't been completely on. So we are establishing, and thanks to John and staff, establishing a work plan to revisit policies and procedures on a regular basis to ensure that we're doing best practice. And I will turn that over to John.
Thank you. The thanks really belongs with Barbara and Walter. They worked hard to put this grid together, describing all of our policies and their current state of affairs. And so the idea is that we review the policies on a regular cadence. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to make updates to the policies, but we want to put eyes on the policies on a regular basis to make sure they're still consistent with the current state of affairs and any other changes that may, sometimes we make a change in one place and it's missed in another, and so it gives us an opportunity to synchronize across all of our policies. So, Walter, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Great, thank you. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, as John said, from time to time, these need to be reviewed. Sometimes no updates are required per se. And as you recall, Tommy Yanucci had this file before he left for a client a few years ago. I took it over. And when he left, he said the policies he thought were in reasonably good shape. They've been reviewed and updated periodically. And he felt that the boards and staff felt it was, and the executives were in good shape. So he suggested, and staff agreed, and the boards agreed, that we would move to a frequency of a review of every 5 years from 3. So there hasn't been a lot of need to change in the past, subject to those things like the procurement policy, which required some overhaul, if you will. So the schedule really reflects that. The ones really there's not much there to talk about, other than I point out that there is on page 3 no enterprise risk management policy per se. I've been in the pension fund industry for 3 decades, if you will, worked for 2 mega funds, so developed policies on my own as staff. So that's one thing to think about as you move forward over time and contemplate whether there is a need for a new policy. I look at things through a risk lens, whether it's on the investment side or everything else, if you will. And that should drive a lot of the policies you have, just to make sure that you've covered whether there's strategic risks, operational or investment, of course. That's the notable one that boards should think about, the 2 boards and staff and the executives. Outside of that, I would say, I'm open to questions or comments if there are any from the trustees.
If I may, just one additional comment. Thank you, Walter. So the enterprise risk management policy was something that was discussed at the governance committee as well, and put as part of. For those of you who know, we have an outstanding RFP for our governance consultant, which Walter is from Cortex, and our contract with Cortex is due to expire at the end of March of this year. So we have an outstanding RFP, and we believe that we will be able to complete that procurement in that time. But that could complicate the schedule a little bit, as we don't know how that will end up, and if there is a transition from one service provider to another, it could slow the schedule a little bit. But part of that RFP, we made sure that we highlighted the work that we wanted to do with enterprise risk management. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, is this the list we see on page 2? That's not the. This is not the entire list of charters and policies, right? It's just what we have decided to do. Okay.
Yeah, this is only the ones that I'm clear on that. There's about 30, just shy of 30 there, charters and policies. Those are the ones that I help with. Cortex does. There are, of course, the city policies, procedures, if you will. And then there are, I think the disability is one, for example, where Cortex does not get involved, and that's run either by, led by either staff directly or maybe perhaps legal counsel or someone else.
Yeah, no, I don't mean the city policies. I mean, or like, for example, is there only an audit committee charter, or is there an audit committee, is there a policy as well? Similarly, is there only investment committee charter? There's also an investment committee policy statement. So I'm just trying to understand the scope.
Correct. In the case of the investment policy, you're absolutely right. Cortex does not get engaged to review that. That's done, I assume that the leadership for that is, Prabhu, obviously, and staff. He's got a, sophisticated team in-house. I believe they lead that. But I'm not sure who else Prabhu leans on. From time to time, we're asked to look at that, but we don't
Okay,
take the lead
understood.
on that.
So
But
this
we're
is
happy
only
to-
what Cortex.
Work within the governance committee scope with, under our governance
Okay.
service provider.
Understood, okay, thanks. So each committee has its own methodology for the review of each policy, or, I'm just wondering, this kind of feels a little,
Right. I think it might behoove us to put together a full library of all of the policies and who owns, who drives the policy review.
yeah, not to give you more work.
No, I think that's a good point. I know, working with the admin team, we're trying to catalog all of the city policies, because as the city policies change, we also need to keep on top of those. So, no, that's a good point. Thank you.
With that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to support the work plan.
Okay, I have a motion from Dick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sorry, I have a second from Gretchen. Sorry, Eswar, you have something?
No, I was doing second.
Oh, okay. Any further discussion? Okay, Eswar.
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Richard? Dick?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, you motioned, but, Andrew?
Aye.
Sunita?
Aye.
Woosley?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Gretchen?
Aye.
And Franco, I am aye. Disability.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. We have the committee meetings there. And this next meeting will be on the 13th. It'll be at the headquarters at 8 o'clock in the morning.
And we need to receive and file the Disability Committee minutes. JPC, Eswar?
We've had no meetings, we do have a meeting this month.
Okay, and then Legal Services Joint Ad Hoc Committee. That would be me and Sunita. I don't know that we have much on that, do we, John?
I apologize. Say that again?
Legal Services Ad Hoc Committee.
Nothing more than my oral update. The RFP has been released. We expect proposals by the end of the month, really for all of our outstanding RFPs. What we're going to do is we're going to review the schedule based on the actual posting date of the RFP, and we'll reach out to the committee to proactively schedule something a little bit in advance based on when we expect to receive proposals so that we can start that review process.
Yeah, I mean, I might just add that the process of review, the document prepared for RFP and the feedback from both us and the Federated Subcommittee is really well done. Thank you, John.
Oh, thank you.
And your team, and
And I'll add that we reached out to the city attorney's office, and they provided a similar type of feedback, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, and then ad hoc for actuarial services, David Kwan.
Yeah, we had a short Zoom call to discuss the RFP process for actuarial services and the role of the committee, bottom line, which is going to lean on the staff, John and company, to come up with a recommendation, and the recommendations, final recommendation is going to be made to the board.
So we have no proposed follow-up meeting yet, because we expect it to be a little bit later, because the staff will be doing some of the pre-work for the actuarial RFP process as compared to the legal procurement process, where the ad hoc committee will be more involved.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any proposed agenda items?
Mr. Chair, but I'd like to, before you close, just make a comment that we all have so many challenges going on, and we're all here together. But as you know, today, this terrible fire in LA with all our emergency personnel and death and destruction, but our police and firefighters, again, do the job. So our prayers and thoughts are with them. Thank you.
Absolutely, Dick. I echo that. Okay, hearing no proposed agenda item, we are adjourned.
Great.
Thank you.
Very-